Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we uncover the mysteries, the myths, and legends behind history's most feared books.
Yeah.
From mystical grimoires
Right.
to ancient religious texts, these books carry secrets too dangerous to be read.
Mm-hmm.
I am your host,
And I'm the expert.
and today we're diving into episode 160,
160.
Celestial Bonds, Astrology and the Alchemy of Marriage.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll be looking at a book called Astrology and Marriage by Sephiroth, published by Global Grey.
Right.
And just as a quick kind of overview for you,
Mm.
the way that we'll be looking at this is really diving deep into the wisdom of ancient Chaldean astrology
Right.
as it relates to marital compatibility.
Yeah.
And kind of the mission for this deep dive is to understand
Yeah.
the astrological principles that govern happiness and discord in marriage,
All right.
according to this ancient science,
Interesting.
and how these insights might offer a different lens through which to view relationships.
I like that.
So I think, for people who are, maybe into astrology already or are just kind of curious about it,
Yeah.
this could be a really interesting episode.
I think so.
So without further ado,
Let's jump in.
let's get started.
Yeah.
So Sephiroth says that analysis of marriage prospects
Okay.
begins with the individual horoscopes.
Right.
And that by comparing them, we can look for what he calls harmonizing factors,
Okay.
harmonious configurations that suggest good potential for a union.
Right.
But he really emphasizes that your individual horoscope
Mm-hmm.
must first indicate a general propensity for happy marriage.
Interesting.
So it's not just enough to have
Right.
two charts that look good together.
Right.
Your own chart needs to have a certain look to it as well.
Gotcha.
So he talks about signs of happiness within the chart.
Okay.
And
What does that mean?
a significant one is a harmonious configuration
Go ahead.
between the sun and moon.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a sextile or trine aspect, or even a well-aspected conjunction
I see.
between the sun and moon.
Okay.
And this is kind of interesting because the sun represents your core identity, how
Right.
you express yourself outwardly.
Right.
Your moon represents your inner world emotions.
Okay.
And when these two are in good aspect to each other,
Yeah.
it suggests
Good.
a natural inner harmony that bodes well for partnerships.
So it's like you're starting off
Yeah.
in a good place, like with yourself
Yeah.
to even begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we know, the sun and moon are the luminaries.
Right. The most prominent.
The brightest things in the sky.
The most, noticeable.
So having those two
Yeah.
in good aspect
Yeah.
to each other is
Yeah.
a really positive thing.
For sure.
She gives some examples of this.
Okay.
For instance, if your sun is in Aries, which is roughly late March to late April,
Okay.
a moon in Gemini or Aquarius would be considered harmonious.
Okay. So
That's about 2 signs away.
2 signs away.
Also, Sagittarius or Leo, about 4 signs away.
Okay.
Similarly, if your sun is in Taurus,
Okay.
which is late April to late May,
Okay.
a moon in Cancer or Pisces
Mm-hmm.
or Virgo or Capricorn would be considered harmonious.
Okay.
So there's a certain rhythm to it.
There's a certain
Yeah.
pattern that we can see.
Yeah, and those are the sextile and trine aspects.
Right.
And then he goes on to talk about the house of marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
The house of marriage.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Governs partnerships and agreements.
Right.
And planets that are located in this house at the time of your birth
Mm-hmm.
can tell you a lot about the kind of partner you might attract
Interesting.
and the general nature of your marriage.
Gotcha.
So, for example, if Jupiter is in the house of marriage, Sephiroth suggests that you're likely to have a fortunate partner.
Okay.
Someone robust, generous, full of vitality, good nature,
Nice.
even jovial and fond of the good life.
Oh, wow. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
If Venus is there,
All right, Venus. What about Venus?
then you can expect a partner who is refined, cultivated,
Okay.
gentle with good taste, genial and persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
Not forceful, but kind, sympathetic.
Right.
Often very artistic and house proud.
Yeah.
Basically, someone who makes a really nice home.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
If Saturn is well aspected there,
Okay, Saturn.
then your partner
Saturn. What about Saturn?
might be careful, saving, industrious, maybe a little thrifty,
Okay.
methodical, reliable, and guided by principle.
Mm-hmm.
He even mentions that in a female horoscope.
Yeah.
This can sometimes indicate marriage to a widower,
Okay.
especially with well-aspected Mars as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
That's
Kind of an interesting
That's different. Yeah, than the other ones.
little twist there.
Yeah, little twist there.
Then there's Mars.
Okay, Mars.
A well-aspected Mars in the house of marriage
Yeah.
suggests an ambitious, energetic, self-starting partner.
Mm-hmm.
And he notes that for a man with Mars in this position,
Yeah.
he might find his wife wears the trousers,
Oh, really?
meaning she's the more assertive one.
Yeah.
For a woman, it suggests an enterprising, active, and courageous husband.
Okay.
So very dynamic qualities there.
For sure.
And finally, if the sun or moon themselves
Okay.
are well aspected in the house of marriage, it's a strong indicator of a congenial and happy marriage
Okay.
that's likely to be aided by success and good fortune in general.
Very good. Very good.
So a well-placed and aspected planet
Right.
in the house of contracts especially, coupled with that harmonious sun-moon aspect, seems to be painting a pretty optimistic picture
Very optimistic.
for a fulfilling marriage.
Yeah. Great. That's kind of the happy side of things.
Yeah.
But let's flip the coin now
Okay, let's flip it.
and talk about the signs of discord.
Oh, boy.
So
Yeah.
just as harmonious aspects between the sun and moon
Right.
signify happiness, bad configurations.
Okay.
Specifically, the square or opposition aspects indicate potential trouble in relationships.
Right.
These are often found at the first quarter
Okay.
full moon or last quarter phases.
I see.
And even a badly aspected conjunction at the new moon
Okay.
can be a red flag.
So there's a few different ways that this can manifest in your chart.
And these challenging aspects often indicate an inherent tension or conflict
Right.
between your core identity
Right.
and your emotional needs.
Right.
And Sephiroth explains that they can lead to incompatibility of temperament
Okay.
due to a lack of adaptability in your interactions.
I see.
And just as certain planets...
In the house of contracts can bring positive influences.
Right.
Others can spell trouble,
Yeah.
especially when negatively impacted
Right.
by challenging aspects from other planets,
Oh.
which are called afflicted.
Afflicted, yeah.
So, for instance, Neptune afflicted in the house of contracts
Okay.
can suggest what he calls misalliance. Deceptions, intrigues, alienation.
That's not good.
Not so good.
Not really what you're looking for.
Yeah, not really what you're looking for.
In a marriage.
Uranus there.
Okay. You're
Uranus points to a partner who is fractious, independent, erratic, self-assertive, and contentious.
Okay.
So, again, not so great
Not so good.
for a peaceful home life.
Good. This pattern.
Saturn, when badly aspected there,
Okay.
indicates a partner who is cold, reserved,
Okay.
avaricious, resentful, and unforgiving.
All right. So it's starting to get a little rough now.
Yeah, a little bit bleak.
A little bleak.
Even Jupiter,
Even Jupiter.
which is usually beneficent, can have negative implications
Okay.
if afflicted in the house of contracts, leading to a partner who's extravagant, boastful, and excessive in general.
Okay.
So kind of too much of a good thing.
Too much.
Mars, when afflicted there, suggests a partner who is violent, destructive, irascible,
Oh, wow.
aggressive, and always in a state of agitation.
That sounds really tough.
Oh, definitely someone to proceed with caution with.
Yeah, for sure.
And surprisingly, even Venus,
oh, even Venus.
the planet of love,
Right.
can have its downsides when
Right.
afflicted there.
In the House of Contracts.
Indicating a partner who is easygoing to the point of being lax,
Okay.
self-indulgent, slovenly, superficial, weak,
Oh.
and ultimately quite useless as a partner.
Okay. So we're seeing the full spectrum
Yeah.
of potential issues here.
It's really interesting, isn't it, how
Yeah.
he paints these character sketches
Yes, definitely.
based on
It's very interesting.
these planetary placements.
It's very descriptive.
Yeah.
I like that.
So moving on, he talks about this figure,
Okay.
the misogynist.
Oh,
and
misogynist.
from an astrological standpoint,
Right.
this is presented almost as an anomaly,
Okay.
arising from hard experience.
Interesting.
So it's not necessarily an inherent trait,
Right.
but something shaped by negative encounters.
Okay.
And he says that a dominant Saturn in the birth chart, especially afflicting Venus
Okay.
in a male horoscope, or Mars in a female horoscope
Yeah.
can indicate this inherent aversion to marriage.
Right.
And it's attributed to excessive caution and a fear of rebuffs.
Okay.
And along the same lines, he talks about what he calls old maids.
Okay.
As in, like, elderly spinsters who were supposedly born when Mars was weak in the heavens.
Okay.
And afflicted by Saturn in a female horoscope. So again, we see that Saturn restricting the energy of Mars.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moving on.
Right.
He talks about the domestic circle.
The domestic circle.
And this is defined astrologically as the middle 30 degrees of the northwest quadrant.
Okay. So like
and it holds significance for your home life after marriage.
Gotcha.
So whereas the house of marriage deals with the formal agreement, the domestic circle is looking more at the day-to-day experience of home life.
Okay. Makes sense.
And he says that if malefic planets are found there, that's Saturn, Mars, Uranus, or Neptune, or if benefic planets like Jupiter, Venus, or even the Sun, Moon, or Mercury are there, but afflicted by those malefics, then domestic happiness might be hard to come by.
Okay.
And it could even be at the root of people seeking solace outside their marriages.
I see.
So not so good.
Not so good.
Conversely, if the benefic planets Jupiter, Venus, or even the Sun, Moon, Mercury are well aspected by Jupiter or Venus and located there.
In the domestic circle.
Then it suggests peace, harmony, and even fortunate children.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of the
good stuff.
Yeah. And just to give a quick definition
of
benefic and malefic planets, he says that they're called benefic or malefic because their effects, based on observations during transits, are generally good or bad, congenial or uncongenial.
Okay.
So it's kind of a shorthand.
Makes sense.
He also touches on multiple marriages.
Oh, multiple marriages.
And he says that certain planetary positions at birth might incline a person in that direction.
Right.
So, for example, if Gemini, Sagittarius, or Pisces are setting at your birth, and the moon is aspecting several planets simultaneously, especially if the moon or those planets are in Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, the likelihood of more than one marriage is increased.
Interesting.
Also, a planet in the house of contracts, with the moon forming its first post-birth aspect to another planet, is another indicator. So then he talks about the marriage contract.
Right, the marriage contract.
And he clarifies that in an astrological sense. This refers to a binding agreement, distinct from just living together.
Right.
And he even suggests that if your house of contracts is badly affected, but your house of domesticity is well influenced, it might indicate extramarital affairs. So a legally binding but unhappy marriage alongside a more congenial domestic arrangement elsewhere.
I see.
So what about the remedy then?
The remedy.
So he's not suggesting easier divorce. Instead, he argues for careful consideration of compatibility before marriage using these astrological principles. And he stresses the importance of individual fitness. So things like soberness, chastity, good physical and mental health as a prerequisite. And then on top of that, you can layer astrological compatibility.
Right. So that's like the foundation. And then you can add the other stuff on top. Then he discusses something he calls chaotic alliances.
Chaotic alliances.
And these are illustrated with several case studies involving Neptune.
Neptune again.
Afflicted in the house of contracts. And these examples are quite dramatic, featuring infidelity, mysterious departures.
Wow.
Even bigamy. All tied to this particular astrological signature.
I see.
On a slightly different note. He explores fascination.
As another potential outcome of Neptune's influence in the house of contracts. And he gives a couple examples of men with Neptune in this house who experience intense and persistent, even if tumultuous relationships with their wives.
Interesting.
Suggesting a kind of magnetic, almost obsessive connection. And then there's this case of Death the Bride.
Oh, boy.
Which is...
Death the Bride.
And then there's this case.
Okay.
On the eve of his wedding.
Oh, boys.
At the age of 35.
Wow.
And he points to several negative marriage indicators in his chart, including an afflicted Saturn conjunct the luminaries and a Venus-Mars opposition. And how astrological progressions aligned with these malefic influences at the time of his planned marriage.
Wow. So that was like a
pretty stark example.
Yeah, a big red flag, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so this brings us to selectivity.
Okay, selectivity.
Which he emphasizes as the crucial step of actually comparing horoscopes to assess compatibility.
So it's not enough to just look at one chart in isolation.
To just look at individual charts.
Yeah, you need to see the interplay. You need to see how they interact.
Between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he mentions specific points of attraction.
Okay, like what?
Like the sun of one person falling on the Mars of the other.
Right.
Or Venus on Mars.
Okay.
Though he notes that the latter is less lasting.
Venus on Mars is less lasting.
Yeah.
Okay.
He points out signs of lasting disagreement, such as malefic planets landing on key points in the other person's chart.
Right.
Or the sun and moon being in square or opposition across the two charts.
Gotcha.
For example, a Virgo sun. In one chart with a moon in Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius in the other is a likely source of conflict.
Right.
And he concludes by stressing that many unhappy marriages show strong initial attraction points alongside underlying adverse indications that only surface later.
I see.
And his final thought is that true marriage should be based on deep sympathy and intellectual friendship.
Right.
Not just physical attraction.
Not just physical attraction,
Which is pretty profound.
It is,
So in our final remarks then,
Okay.
I think we can say that Sephiroth's astrological lens highlights key indicators of marital harmony.
Okay.
Like harmonious sun-moon aspects, well-aspected planets in the house of marriage, especially Jupiter and Venus.
Jupiter and Venus.
And on the flip side, disharmonious sun-moon aspects. Afflicted malefic planets in the house of marriage, especially in Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Mars.
Right.
Those are seen as signs of discord.
Yeah.
And it's also important to remember the emphasis on adaptability, tolerance, and patience as being crucial qualities for navigating the challenges of marriage, often reflected in harmonious luminary aspects.
Right.
He also draws attention to the significance of Venus in a male horoscope and Mars in a female horoscope.
Right.
And how their affliction by malefic planets can negatively impact love affairs and marriage. And he even brings in historical figures.
Oh, really?
Like Lord Byron and Madame Blavatsky as examples of how challenging planetary aspects can manifest.
Right.
So this deep dive into Sephiroth's astrology and marriage reveals a fascinating system of understanding compatibility and the potential for harmony or discord in marriage. It's a framework
based on ancient Chaldean wisdom that, while perhaps unconventional to many today, offers a unique lens through which to view the enduring quest for a happy partnership. And I think it really leaves you wondering if perhaps understanding these ancient principles could still offer some valuable insights into our modern relationship.
So too.
So I think that's all for today.
I think that's it.
On the deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.